Welcome in, Loons fans, to another edition of the Matchday Preview. Jonathan Harrison, you're joined once again by co-host Manny Lagos. Manny, how are we doing this morning? A day after a Loons loss, unfortunately, but we've got plenty to discuss. USA Cup, new kit launch, a big guest today. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I think I'm a little fatigued. Obviously, the disappointment of the game, but you're right. It's kind of just fatigue because I thought there was some awesomeness around the tough loss. And I think the energy of the kit launch, the energy of USA Cup and all the kids at the game last night, and the crowd was still awesome. And then I'm excited for our guest today, a former teammate of mine, former national team player, a little bit of everything in the soccer world, what he does. He both works on the technical side. Oh, he's got his Loons gear right now. So I'll let you introduce him, but I'm excited for it.
Yeah, former U.S. men's national team defender, former Sporting Kansas City and Chivas USA defender. I think the only guest we've ever had on that's played for Chivas USA. Jimmy Conrad in town for USA Cup, was at the game at Allianz Field last night, has the new Loons kit. Jimmy, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great, Jonathan. Great to see you, and always a pleasure to see you, Manny. And obviously, we got to hang out in the last two Loons games, so always fun spending time with you.
Yeah, this should be a fun one. Let's jump into the topic at hand, at the pressing topic. Everybody's talking about the new
Chivas USA. Jonathan,
Yeah.
I get it. We want to talk Chivas USA. Listen, it folded many years ago. It's where careers went to die, especially center backs. Me, Danny Califf, Carlos Bocanegra, lots of U.S. center backs went there and their careers immediately ended. So
By the way,
I would
can
just
you imagine if they actually fought through that tough time and had their franchise now? It would be huge.
It would be huge. It would be huge.
Wait,
I mean,
now a Chivas USA in California. I think they were just a couple decades early.
yeah, they should have named it Chivas LA. Chivas
There you
USA feels very, very arrogant in some capacity.
Yeah.
We could argue though that LAFC kind of was a reincarnation of at least that fan base in some capacity.
Yeah.
But
It feels like it now. Maybe not a couple decades ago, but
that's true.
Now,
That's true.
I do feel like now it's a really California Mexican crowd base. Yeah, base. So different than LAFC.
I was going to bring up the jersey, but you guys went full Chivas USA on this. I just wanted to use that as a way to intro you, Jimmy. But let's talk about this jersey. Manny, you've been teasing me before we started the podcast for the past couple of weeks about how great this kit looks. And you understated it. This is an amazing kit. The Heritage kit calls back to the Kicks days, the Strikers days, the Thunder days. This is an amazing kit. Really well done by everybody involved making the new Loons kit, Manny.
Yeah, and you know what? If you go to the website, it's not just the shirt, which is freaking unbelievable, but everything around it, all the kind of the branding, the swag, and you know what? It's real though. It's so authentic. It really is, and I love that Jimmy's been here this week to kind of get a taste of Minnesota. He always comes and does a USA Cup for Target and is a great representative of that. But the stadium had all these people that have seen soccer for the last 30, 40, 50 years, and you just like I become a kid when I see the kick stuff. Like I'm a 9-year-old again looking at that shirt. And then I get proud of the Thunder and my father and kind of like those years of keeping soccer alive when there wasn't an MLS or there wasn't really a lot of like really big pro soccer leagues. So unbelievable launch. I could not give more compliments to our staff, not just the branding, the storytelling. I thought it was a great day for the club. Maybe not as much on the field, but off the field, one of the more historic days. I really believe that this was just a really, really special day.
Manny, did your dad approve? I know he's got a lot of history and a lot of stake in Minnesota soccer. When you showed him the jersey, did Buzz Lagos approve?
Not only did approve, but I told him we've got another month of celebration. There's some cool stuff we'll probably tease out upcoming in the next couple of weeks where we get to really pay homage to the pioneers like him. There's many of them who've really put decades of work to kind of have that special vibe and atmosphere we had last night. So my dad was super excited about it. He's awesome. Yeah, obviously you know that. So
yeah. It's an awesome jersey, Jimmy, and it was one of 8, 10 jerseys revealed yesterday that are retro inspired, that harken back to each team's historical identity, no matter how long it is. I think it's one of the better ones, if not the best one of the bunch, Jimmy.
yeah, it's for me 10-10, no notes. I really love all the details, right? I think that's what makes anything special is the details. And then obviously you have the history to back it up. Yesterday, I learned a lot about Alan Willie and his impact on the game back in the day and playing for the Kicks. And the shirt really touches upon, it has a tether to every single generation of the game in Minnesota. So Yeah, it was really neat for me to get that and get to that insight and to hear. I had no idea about Alan Willie, and now I want to learn more. I mean, the guy was an absolute boss, you know?
Yeah.
So
he actually got invited by the Cosmos to go on a European tour. I think he scored against Bayern Munich on that tour too. So he's and then he became a prolific indoor soccer scoring machine as well in the 80s for the Strikers. Their franchise moved Jimmy from Florida to Fort Lauderdale to Minnesota. The Robbie family moved them up here. So 84 to 88, we had indoor soccer, and Alan Willie was a stud striker.
Yeah, I mean, I heard about his famous game in the playoffs against the Cosmos, the 9-2 win, and he scored 5 goals. I mean, that should be highlighted anytime you talk about soccer in Minnesota. That is ridiculous against an excellent Cosmos team, of course. And then I learned about the striker liker bumper stickers.
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah, I mean, I need a striker liker bumper sticker in my life. That needs to happen.
Jonathan, to put you under the spot, because you brought up the shirts and you kind of, rightfully bragged about ours. What shirts resonated with you yesterday?
I like the Seattle one. I know there's not a whole lot of history for Charlotte FC, but I really like the way theirs looks and how it looks retro inspired despite not having a whole lot of history for their organization. I was a big fan of that one for sure. Which one stuck?
I thought the Charlotte was close. I nerd out in this stuff too, Jonathan, like you do.
Yeah.
I think they should have gone with Carolina. I just think, there was a chance for them to kind of build out a bit more of their base besides Charlotte. I think if they said Carolina, because there's a lot of history. We played against the Carolina Railhawks. There's a lot of pro teams that have come and gone from all of North Carolina. I get it. A lot of pro teams from Charlotte too. They made that tough decision. I think it should have said Carolina, but that's just me. So.
I'll jump in and say,
I'm also a big fan of Dallas going back to the burn. That's a great name.
Yeah. I like the Columbus Crew going back to their 3 guys in hard hats logo.
I thought that was awesome. I think that's up. I still think ours is better. I agree with you, Jimmy. That was a really cool one.
Yeah, and then I played for San Jose before it was the Earthquakes. I was on the Clash. It was their last year. The Clash was my first year in the league. And so I like the Clash-inspired jersey. And on top of that, we haven't even discussed the Gazelles, the matching Gazelles with each jersey. Manny was rocking those last night to match the Loons jersey. And I have a pair of Clash-inspired Gazelles waiting for me when I get back home to the Bay Area.
That's so awesome. Jimmy, by the way, I did not play for the Clash. I showed up there with the Earthquakes. But I have like 5 Clash old jerseys because when I showed up, they changed the name and they gave us all these Clash jerseys. So I've got a ton of them.
Those are legit they're worth something. Collector's items. Yeah. Those are hard to get. Anything that's like with like the big Yahoo patches they put on the back. They used to stitch all the stuff on. It wasn't like printed on like it is now. So
like a Saved by the Bell episode right there.
Yeah, they're really cumbersome, like big Honda or Yahoo patches. Yeah, ridiculous.
There was a lot of good ones for sure yesterday released. It's been fun to see. I do have to make a correction, as pointed out by our producer Grace Dearson. The host of the other podcast on the Sound of the Loons feed, the Sound of the Loons podcast with Zarek Valentine, he did play for Chivas USA as well. He Jimmy, you're not the only one on the podcast feed that has played.
He actually played longer than I did. So and he escaped. He actually went on to have a very good career. So congrats to Zarek for that.
His career didn't end like you suggested.
He was an outside back. I was a center back. Center backs is where the careers went to die. Yeah.
Let's jump into plenty to discuss across the league. I do want to start off though, Jimmy, former U.S. men's national team defender, your thoughts on where the U.S. men's national team stand after the Gold Cup. I know it's been a couple weeks, but Manny and I talked about it quite heavily during the Gold Cup run for the U.S. There was a lot of consternation and questioning about the team going into the Gold Cup with a lot of roster, a lot of player changes and absences from what you would expect that roster to be, but ended up making the finals with a bit of a chopped and changed roster. What were your thoughts on how the U.S. did and where you stand on confidence going into the World Cup next year?
Jonathan, how much time do we have? This is a big topic. Listen, overall, without the players named, I think that we did well to find ourselves in the final. We beat the teams that we should have beat, and we lost to the team that I thought were better than us. That was Mexico in the final. The two friendlies ahead, Turkey and Switzerland, I thought definitely probably forced us to have more questions than answers, or maybe got some answers, like which guys can help you and which can't. And maybe that was shown throughout the Gold Cup run because we didn't have too much rotation. I think the downside of not rotating the squad is that we looked a little bit tired when we needed a little bit more juice in that final against Mexico. When you knew they were going to have a little bit more possession, could we still be in a situation where we could pounce and be on the hunt to win that ball back? And we just looked a little tired when we had those opportunities. And obviously we scored first, so we were also up 2-1 against Costa Rica. We almost gave away that game against Guatemala. You know, there's some game management stuff that I would want to get into, substitution patterns or ideas from Mauricio Pochettino. But ultimately, I don't judge anybody by what they're doing a year out from a World Cup. I think he's going to be judged by what he does at the World Cup itself. He's got some player stuff to manage, Christian Pulisic in particular, right? And there's some other players, whether it's injuries or whatever it may be, leaving players off. I thought Josh Sargent would have been a really nice welcome addition to the Gold Cup, and obviously he hasn't scored for the U.S. in a long time. So bringing him in to potentially dunk on an opponent like a Trinidad who aren't very good to get his confidence going again could have been a lot of value there. But there's some bright spots. I think that you could probably book Diego Luna's ticket. I think he's done enough to warrant not being a starter, but somebody you could put in a pinch or based on a situation or an opponent in particular that you think he could be helpful with. And then I thought Malik Tillman demonstrated that he is somebody that we can trust. And in some ways, him and Diego Luna probably benefited the most from not having the other quote unquote big dogs there, because now they had to step up and fill the void and take on that responsibility of carrying our attack. And then, you know, I think it's still an open audition as to who's going to be playing next to Tyler Adams in the middle of midfield. Maybe Chris Richards is another bright spot where I think he's solidified. He's the number one starter for us. But then Tim Ream, is he your guy? Matt Freese at least made the competition at goalkeeper a little bit more competitive. So it's not just Matt Turner, even if he might not play at all for Lyon next season. So I still think we have some questions, but I do think we got a little bit more answers with regard to how we want to play, what Mauricio Pochettino is looking for in his particular group of players, a lot of insight on how we wanted to press, right, or how we wanted to move on both sides of the ball. So really, I say all this, the roster he's going to put together for this next window in September against South Korea and Japan is going to be very, very interesting, because now he's got a lot of good information about kind of our depth guys and maybe a couple starters, and then how they mesh now with the Jedi Robinson, Serginho Dest. We'll see if Christian gets called in. Listen, I wouldn't be surprised if he just continues to send a message and say, I'm going to leave Christian out of the September window, and you know, kind of send a message to him and maybe a couple other guys that he's in charge. He's the guy. I'll let you back in when it's time. And then, you know, as they work through that communication side of it, hopefully behind the scenes and not publicly like they did over the summer, then he can get brought back in October. We can smooth it all out and smooth sailing from there. But yeah, ultimately, I think it was a good exercise, but and I'm optimistic that we found a couple guys that can help us. But I'm very curious to get the whole group together and no more trying things out anymore, Manny, right? I think that time's over. You know what you know now. You could probably identify your best, 14, 15 guys that you're probably going to trust throughout the World Cup. You found some guys you can trust who can be good teammates and locker room guys for the rest of the roster, or who you can trust in a pinch. And now we just got to move forward and start to create that identity on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I like it, Jimmy. I think you and I chatted a little bit about it. And again, my glass half full is exactly what you said about, I think we learned a couple guys that I think could be on the roster, even a couple that could be starters to help it grow. I guess my question for you, and I know I'm going to be a little nostalgic, but I feel like we kind of know pretty much where the group is and who's going to be on the roster and who's going to almost even be starters for the most part. I'm just nervous about, I go back to 2006 and when we played Italy. Mm-hmm. And I get chills of loving that type of battling and fighting. And you think about Brian McBride. I was working for XM Radio calling those World Cup games. Obviously, you lived it. And is there a way we can get the combination of the quality we want and that type of just fighting for your country versus where we have players playing all over the world now?
Yes, I think the short answer is yes. The long answer is, when this World Cup comes around, and I guess this is where I've netted out on this, whatever the guys are feeling at this particular moment, or if they're tired or if they can't get as engaged for whatever reason, when we're a month out from the World Cup, dude, it is going to be bristling with enthusiasm and anticipation and hope, right? That's where your hope is. And now when the group's together, this is where I find a little bit of hope as well, and a little bit of, again, bringing me some peace. I've been a part of the World Cup process before, and you have a month before the tournament actually starts. You got a month together. Where I feel like Mauricio Pochettino maybe lacks as a manager, because this is his first international job, he's a club guy. He likes the day-to-day. He wants to create that methodology, that periodization where he can work with guys week in and week out, a game every 3 or 4 days. Like that feels like his natural rhythm as a coach, and probably as a player too, right? He just moved right from a player to being a coach. When you have now a month before a World Cup to get everything where you want it to be, and then I think all that other stuff just goes away, Manny, right? If you don't like somebody on your team or whatever, dude, you put all that aside because you know that it's in the best interest of the team and for the country, that, and especially a World Cup that we're hosting, that you got to put your best foot forward. And so I'm not really that worried. I think we will see that desire and that pride and that grit that we're all kind of hoping to see. And it's not going to be anything like, because I was at the Nations League in March at SoFi Stadium in LA, where 4 o'clock, like on a Wednesday, where there's no fans in the stands, which in fairness to the fans, it's almost impossible to get anywhere in LA at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And you're asking a lot of that, any fan group, to get there that early to watch a game. There's just not a lot of energy there. A lot of our European guys had flown who knows how many thousands of miles to get there in the middle of being in a tiring European season. So you take all that into consideration and looking at it as unemotionally as possible, it all makes a little bit of sense why we didn't play to the level we're capable of. But come World Cup time, I honestly have no doubt that we're going to dig in and do what we have to do to get a result.
I love it. I'm not. I don't know, John. I think as my fandom side will get there. If I'm on this show, in my perspective, and I'm actually having you as a guest, I'm a little bit nervous because I do feel like that era, there was a pioneering kind of mentality.
I understand.
MLS was about to go away, and that group really was like, we've got to show potential new owners. We've got to show ourselves, the country, that we can sustain professional soccer. This new group is successful in Europe, and they're playing in Europe. And again, I think you're right. I think they're going to come back and say, hey, this is a great opportunity for soccer to have another reboot of growing in this country. I'm just not sure I get the vibe right now, which is okay. It's 12 months away.
It's funny that you say that. Listen, I was trying to piggyback off your glass half full. So let's start there. Also, I should say that when I coach and when you've been around, there's two kind of sides to things. If you make a pass or if you make a decision, there's a hopeful decision. Like you hope that pass is going to get there. You hit a pass or a cross, you hope that it's going to get in there. But there are moments where you know it's going to get in there. And right now, based on what I'm hearing from you and where I think most of the fan base is, we're still kind of in that, we hope that team shows up. And I'm hopeful that over the next, we have some good friendlies coming up, that over the next, 6, 7, 8 months, and as we get into that pre-World Cup camp, that we move from hope to know. Like, we know that these guys are going to be absolute badasses and go out there and represent the country at the highest level that they possibly can and show us everything that we know and what we're proud about being an American, which is fighting and scrapping no matter what the situation is. And then you add that quality, and that's where I think that we're probably the most disappointed, because we have guys playing at clubs that we never thought imaginable and being trusted by these clubs, right, to step up in big games. And now we're at that point. So why doesn't that quality just immediately translate into our national team when they show up? And obviously it gets into a big conversation that CONCACAF is a little bit harder than people think it is. And it's not that straightforward and all that. But ultimately it's not a straight A to B translation, right? So that's where I think some of the expectations maybe get a little bit out of whack, and that's why we need to find that balance of that grit and pride and identity that we were talking about, and merging it with that quality that we know this group has. And so I'm hopeful that all comes to fruition once the World Cup starts and the whistle blows in LA for that first game of the tournament.
Just to loop Jonathan in, who's gonna always skew to goalkeeping. Any thoughts on the goalkeeping situation? Anything out there that we haven't seen that something might pop in the next year that would actually elevate the group?
I think getting Matt Freese and trusting Matt Freese through the Gold Cup was really important. And I liked that choice by Mauricio Pochettino, just so that nothing's given to you, right? You have to earn your spot on the national team.
He tried to play him the whole time. He said, Matt Turner, I don't think your level's there right now. So that was
Yeah, and I thought Matt Freese was fine. Solid. He made the saves that he should. Obviously made that one mistake. I was really glad that Mauricio Pochettino stuck with him. Imagine if you make that mistake and then you're out. It just would have really kind of undermined Matt Freese's the rest of his national team career.
Maybe the World Cup has to be like a 90 Argentina or Goicoechea. We just get the PKs every game.
Yeah, I mean,
our savior.
that could be more than possible, to be honest. But I do think that it kind of sent a message to Matt Turner and all the goalkeepers that if you're on the outside looking in, you might still have a chance, right? That Pochettino's open to that type of thing. And then to Matt Turner, hey, you have the experience. You played in the 2022 World Cup, but if you're not playing regularly, then I have to look elsewhere. So I do think that if Zach Steffen could stay healthy, who I saw him play earlier in the season against San Jose, and that guy was dropping dimes from like 60 yards, right on. Right, I mean, with the perfect weight. I'm like, okay, Zach Steffen, I see you, and so he probably has the best feet of the group that currently, but he's just injury prone, and I know that he's got a lingering knee injury that may or may not ever get better. So that's obviously a concern. Matt Freese has got a year now to really kind of pick up his level, and now hopefully can have some confidence from this tournament. And then Matt Turner's got the pressure of, shit, I got to play. Like I got to make sure I'm playing, and hopefully he's found his situation in Lyon where he can get those minutes.
Yeah, Manny, I don't know about you, but I feel like my confidence and my excitement level for this World Cup has picked up a little bit after this conversation with Jimmy.
Yeah,
I love that.
I agree.
I know coming out of the Gold Cup and coming out of those friendlies ahead of the Gold Cup, I was a little bit down and I was a little bit apprehensive about what this team was going to do at the World Cup. But I feel a little bit more hopeful coming out of this conversation, Manny.
No, I do too. I mean, again, like I said, I think I really like our outside backs. I think we got a center back position kind of that gets me more excited. I think Tillman did a really good job in this Gold Cup. I got me excited. He's very athletic. When you see him up close, I got to go to training. He's a big guy. He's much bigger than he looks on TV. So yeah, I mean, I think Jimmy articulated it really, really well. I mean, I'm definitely in the end will always be glass half full. I will say it's a big 12 months for Pochettino to figure out how to kind of combine that quality, hunger, desire, and tactical acumen. We need tactical acumen. We can't just go run around their heads cut off. So all of those things, I think, you get a little nervous and trusting it to a different coach, like who said maybe more of a day-to-day club coach. Can he figure out how to tweak that to become this kind of like savant to build up a group in 12 months to be hungry to represent the country at home, especially as well?
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch this develop over the next couple months. Before we get into the Minnesota United of it all, I do want to talk about the reason why you're in town, Jimmy. USA Cup going on up in Blaine at the National Sports Center. About 1 billion different soccer fields up there for about 1.5 billion different teams to play. It is one of the best times of the year in Minnesota soccer. How is it going up in Blaine right now for the US Open Cup or USA Cup that started this week?
Yeah, it's great. This is my 5th year working with Target as they present the USA Cup, and it's amazing. This is the 40th year ever, 40th anniversary. It started back in 1985, and I think there's 8 clubs that have been a part of all 40 years. So shout out to those.
People Blackhawks. We've got the finals, lost in the finals to a team from California, by the way.
What, in 85 when you were playing?
85, yeah. Pacific Palisades or something like that was like, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, not a Palo Alto. It was a Southern California. I can't remember. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's so Manny, you've seen it and lived it in a way that's a little bit different from me. I'm kind of on the outside looking in, but I've been here now so many years. It's incredible to see the enthusiasm of the players, how excited they are to be here. A lot of them are coming from far distances, whether it's across the United States or from around the world. And I just think that really adds a layer of how special this tournament is. And so to be a part of different activities and festivities, and I'm emceeing the opening ceremonies, which unfortunately didn't happen this year because the weather in Minnesota is awesome and you can never predict for it. Some sweeping thunderstorms came in and kind of ruined the fun, but there's other ways to kind of twist that on its head and do some fun stuff for the kids. So yeah, it's an incredible event. I hope to be a part of it for many years to come, and I'm thrilled that Target, who's obviously a local company, continues to build and invest in the beautiful game. I think it's amazing.
All right, we want to give Target a shout out, but they were a huge part of our kids, partly because they were like, hey, let's get that Loons logo on the front. We'll go on the back. They've been a great partner for us. And obviously we work, Jimmy, really well with the National Sports Center. Yeah. Great host, and Target is such a great presenting sponsor. So there's some cool synergy, and it's nice for our audience to know that the pro team, the first team and second team in academy all train up here. So there's some cool integration between the USA Cup and professional soccer, which I always love. So very few clubs in the league can say they have that kind of integration in youth sports.
Yeah, it's a really fun time of year. It was really fun seeing all the different teams at Allianz Field last night for the game. Whereas normally you see Loons colors all over the field. You saw different club jerseys all over the place at Allianz Field. It was a really fun atmosphere there. Let's jump into the Minnesota United of it all. We'll skip the MLS talk. We're a little bit behind schedule of our normal run of shows.
Because I'm a long time. I don't give short answers, Jonathan. That's the problem.
That's fine.
So Jonathan, let's just do like a 2-minute, like that. The Red Bulls game seemed crazy. 5-3 over New England, right?
Yeah, 5-3 win for the Red Bulls last night.
Colorado was 3-3. Like it was a 3-0 at one point, maybe.
Yeah, I think
I was too tired to think.
It was 2-0 Seattle at one point, but then it became, it was 3-0 going into halftime or coming out of halftime for Seattle. But Colorado fought all the way back. Interesting results for Minnesota standings wise. San Diego lost to Toronto last night 1-0. I think that was the surprising, at home. The surprising result of the evening. Elsewhere across the Eastern Conference, a massive win for Cincinnati last night, a 3-0 win over Inter Miami. Philadelphia keep pace at the top of the East, 2-1 win over Montreal. Nashville continues battling for the top, a 3-0 win over Columbus Crew. Some really tight battles at the top of each conference with 11 weeks left to go in the regular season, Jimmy. This is shaping up to be one heck of a season.
Yeah, it's been great. I actually was really impressed with how Nashville played yesterday against Columbus Crew. Columbus Crew, one of my favorite teams to watch in the league. A big fan of Wilfred Nancy, the manager. I think he's done a nice job. No matter if they lose, certain players or due to injury, due to national team stuff, or if they sell them to La Liga, they find a way to continue to be threatening and just dangerous. And I really appreciate what they do and how they play. So for them to get pretty much their butts handed to them by a Nashville team who, prior to losing to Inter Miami in their previous game, were 15 games unbeaten. So I think that BJ Callahan's done a really nice job of creating an identity on that team. And obviously when you got Surge, who's leading the league in goals, and Hani Mukhtar, playing at the top of their games, they're going to be really, really hard to slow down. And then you got players like Andy Nahar, who's having a renaissance in his career. I remember when he was good like 10 years ago. So for him to kind of get back onto the radar is pretty cool. And then Walker Zimmerman coming back into the team is only going to solidify their back line after coming back from the Gold Cup. So Nashville is definitely one to watch for me. I was surprised that the Vancouver Whitecaps, who had started off with the hottest team to start the season, had dropped off, and now they go to Houston, who's not an easy place to play. I believe you guys lost there because it's a pretty difficult place. You guys are very good on the road, the Loons, but lost in Houston, which is pretty par for the course. Pretty much everybody does. And go there and win 3-0 is really, really impressive. And San Diego losing to Toronto is an eye-opener. I've got a lot of questions with regard to that particular game. But what I love about MLS is you just don't know. Anything can happen on any given day. And whoever gets hot at the right time, especially towards the end of the season, always has a good chance of going on to win MLS Cup.
Manny?
Yeah, no, I mean, if we're going, my brain, because we had such a national team centric, I think if we don't do well in this World Cup cycle and Pochettino doesn't quite get us where we want to go, I do think there'll be a lot of the U.S. fan base will look at the Nashville coach and say, why didn't we have him? Mm-hmm. So he's doing so well. He's showing.
But he did. It took him a while, though. It wasn't like he hit the ground running. It took BJ a little while to kind of get that going. And honestly, you guys know this too. I mean, if your best players are playing their best, it makes everything a whole lot easier. I mean, if Tani and Yeboah are on fire, then you score 4 goals against San Jose. And if it's not working the same way the next game, then you lose ones. I mean, it's just, you need your top guys. And they've been doing it consistently, which is obviously not just on the players. The coach putting them in good positions and putting the team in good positions to create opportunities is going to help. But dude, honestly, Mukhtar and Surge are another level right now.
That is a fun Nashville team to watch.
I do have a hot take just for Jimmy, because we both played with, I think, the best American player of all time in Landon Donovan. But I actually think when Mukhtar's on his game, he reminds me of Landon a lot, ironically. So there's a lot of similarities, because he can score, he can pass, he can pop up in different areas. So there's some similarities for me to him and Landon.
Yeah, his we could have a big conversation about development in this country, but his spatial awareness and situational awareness. Landon was making runs. Listen, Jonathan, when Landon was playing for the Galaxy, I was at Kansas City. He made like 3 incredible runs that I had national team experience. It wasn't like I was some chump defender. I was a chump defender when I was younger, but as I got older, I got better. And he made these runs where if the ball had gotten played, there's no way I'm catching him. But the players he was playing with weren't good enough to see those runs. And so I can see that with Mukhtar too. He's thinking 2, 3, 4 steps ahead that, okay, if it goes here, I'm there. and his change of speed. And to Manny's point, I mean, just that recognition is incredible. And Mukhtar's not alone in that, but I agree that Landon was one of the best off the ball players we've ever produced. I know Clint Dempsey gets a lot of action. He's better on the ball than maybe Landon was, but off the ball, whoo, I'd be hard pressed to find a better American player than Landon.
I think you're right. I think Clint has that grit too.
I always say this in a 5-a-side game, I'd probably take Clint over Landon, but in 11v11, I think I'd take Landon over Clint.
Yeah, and also Landon will drop dimes if you make your runs, which I was the recipient of some really nice, assists from Landon. So
yeah.
If you're looking to hone your skills on the pitch, Minnesota United has your back. Our youth clinics and development camps range from goalkeeper training to academy tryout preparation to good old-fashioned summer camps. We've got something for athletes of all ages and skill levels. Check out our camp offerings at MNUFC.com.
All right, Jonathan, going back, let's go to our game last night. Reluctantly, I know that's
well, we've got the San Jose game we got to talk about beforehand. So we'll get to LA. We'll get to LAFC.
Great. That's right. Jimmy's been for 2 games. Yes. Yeah. Okay. All right.
We'll start off with the good one for sure. Minnesota 4, San Jose 1. And Manny, this one started off with all the talk coming into that game about the Loons being the most aggressive set piece team in the world, thanks to that article in The Guardian. And immediately, right off the kickoff, doing the PSG kickoff, lumping it deep into the San Jose half, and then pressing the heck out of San Jose and forcing a couple of set pieces and scoring within 2 minutes. That opening really showed the excellence for Minnesota United on set piece plays and resets.
Yeah, I don't think you could have a better start to the game when it's offense versus defense, and we score off a set piece within 2 minutes based on the fact we get the ball in numbers in a good area. And then for San Jose, I think they were kind of chasing the game after that. Although the funny thing was, after we scored, I think they had a good spell for about 10 or 15 minutes. They really broke our lines, and they got great offensive players. But I think after we withstood that, I think the game kind of became ours. But what a start. Yeah, you're right. It was a PSG kickoff, and it worked out perfect. And the article in The Guardian right before that, next thing you know, we're scoring 2 minutes into the game.
By the way, also credit to you to last week when we were talking about the Club World Cup final, you saying Chelsea had a better chance than I was giving them, and they go and beat PSG 3-0 in that final. Credit to you. Obviously right on that one. I was completely wrong for saying PSG would run over Chelsea. Jimmy, your thoughts on Minnesota 4, San Jose 1? Just a really fun game, obviously, from the Loons' perspective, getting the win, but just kind of back and forth there. As Manny said, the Loons go up early and then have to weather a bunch of pressure and a ton of pressure from San Jose, but do it and then score a couple late goals in the first half and then find a way to score late in the second half to make it 4-1.
Yeah, I think what I really appreciate about Minnesota this season is your ability to suffer. And in some ways, Manny and I were talking about this after the game against San Jose. You're so comfortable with it, you don't even look uncomfortable, right? You're just like, okay, yeah, we have to drop off. We're going to have to do some of the hard work to make it difficult for our opponent. And then when we win it, we're going to go. And there seems to be a real joy in the playing style this year on both sides of the ball and a real identity that everybody's bought into. And when you can sense a team is bought in, it's really refreshing as a fan because you can see the energy and enthusiasm the players have.
And you can see identity too, right? I think I throw out the word identity as well.
You can see it.
An identity to the team. Yeah.
This is a metaphor I use with my daughter's team who I help coach.
Uh-oh.
It's like when we go forward, when you ride a wave at the beach and all your friends are on the same wave and you're looking over at each other and you're like, this is the best.
California, by the way. I don't know if any Minnesotan can relate to this.
Okay. I don't know how to relate. You guys can find something comparable. But when you're all doing something together and you're looking over and your biggest smile, that's how it looks when Minnesota United went forward against San Jose. Yeah. Like you had the space to do it because San Jose was trying to press you. So they kind of played into what you guys are very good at. And you go with like 5 or 6. Will Trapp's actually coming in late to join the attack. And it's just like everybody's looking around like this is awesome. And we got space and the ball, Tani's coming in out wide or whatever it is. And that is like nonverbal stuff that the fans pick up on. And so to speak to your point, Manny, the identity seems really clear. Doesn't mean it's going to work every night, but against opponents that want to go toe-to-toe with you. I think Minnesota's going to come on the other side of it or be on top at the end. What I really appreciated was kind of the timeliness of your goals. You scoring early, so you set the tone. Obviously, that continues the buy-in, and you can see San Jose going, oh, great, we're on the road. This is the worst way to start. And then, okay, you weathered some difficult moments. San Jose is one of the highest scoring teams in the league. You knew they were going to come throw something at you. They did. You bent, but you didn't break. And then Tani does some incredible work to get that cross to Yeboah 3 minutes before halftime. San Jose's heads go down. Another set piece, you get them for 3. I mean, that's a sign of a really good team. Like, you sense some vulnerability, and you go and you finish it off. You guys have been around. I'm sure you've seen some Minnesota performances, maybe not this year as much, but in the past, where you had those opportunities, but you didn't take them. And they end up catching you later in the game, or they catch you later on in the season, and all of a sudden you just kind of lose that momentum. So I thought it was a really tremendous performance. And then the second half, you give up a goal, and San Jose makes some changes. They were going to come and throw more at you, but you end up hitting them on the counter, kill the game off, and that's a really professional performance. And I think that shows an evolution from the Minnesota teams that I've seen in the past when I've been here at USA Cup before. So I think that everything's pointing in the right direction, which could be a nice segue into the next one, Jonathan.
The LAFC game, a very different feeling after that one. I guess we'll combine the conversations between these two games. Two very different games. One where you're facing a very offensive opponent in San Jose. The second one last night against LAFC, one of the best, if not the best defensive teams in the league. All the analytics show them as one of the best defensive teams in the league. And they showed why. I mean, they changed up Manny to a 5-man backline that we didn't expect them to do because they don't do that very often. LAFC under Steve Trundle, they don't do that. And it really kind of challenged Minnesota to break them down in the Loons. That's been their struggle all year, is finding a way to break down opponent defenses, and they struggled last night to do it.
Yeah, I wish I could say, like, it was definitely a stalemate, except for they scored, and they were the better team of the night because they scored, and we didn't find a way to score. And it was to me, they had a few more better counterattacks. Bouanga can be a difference maker, and he kind of was last night. Although Dane came up huge on both sides of the half to keep us in it. But this was a better defensive team than when we played LAFC to start the year.
Yeah.
So credit to Trundle and that group, and credit to him to get something like Bouanga buying in to play defense for whatever he did, like 83, 84 minutes of soccer. That's the most complete defensive performance I'd seen out of him in years. So. And it is different. They are not pressing and repressing and have these waves of attack where you can't keep the ball. They really got back into their shape. And, I think it's pretty obvious they kind of did what we usually do really well. And I think, like, I wake up today a little crabby about it, but I'm also excited for our group to now maybe get excited about how are we going to solve problems playing down? How are we going to solve problems if a team does that? How do we move the ball quicker? How do we get Tani and Yeboah to kind of use the same spaces and get hungry to get in the box and make runs and be a little bit more a nuisance? So again, overall, I was kind of crabby about it, but I also just thought it was kind of a well-played, cagey, even game. I don't think it was a great game in the eye, to be honest. I think it was probably tough for fans to kind of appreciate it because there really weren't a lot of chances. I'm guessing the expected goals for each team was under 1. But overall, like I said, I would say credit to LAFC. They did what we usually do other teams.
Yeah,
I'll jump in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I'll just jump in and say that given the way that LAFC likes to play, it's, to Manny's point, very similar to how Minnesota United likes to play. So whoever scored first was going to be at a huge advantage because they get to sit back and force the other team to have to stretch, which did lead to some LAFC counters that on another day maybe Bouanga finishes or Dane doesn't save. Ultimately, I do think it's a growth opportunity, like Manny's talking about, because now you have video proof of how kind of where you need to go and where you need to evolve, and probably how teams are now going to try to adapt to face you. I harken back to a couple games earlier in the season against Toronto and Dallas, where both of those teams decided they're not going to press, and both of those games ended 0-0. So you had those in the bag, but now you play a team, they beat you, playing kind of the same style. Now that other teams who, if they're doing their homework, have a little bit of a recipe for how to get under your skin and make it difficult for you, yeah, you're going to have to solve those problems, and you're going to have to be creative in how you solve those problems. So now to have a full 90 minutes of how to work through, okay, listen, this is where the space was. This was a really, honestly, maybe the most collective defensive performance I've seen from LAFC all year, and against the best defense. This is what they're doing. So other people are going to take notes. Now we're going to figure out ways we could have maybe exploited that in a different way. Maybe it's bringing on a little bit more width. Like sometimes you have a plan A and a plan B, but in the middle of a game, the players have to just take what the opponent is giving them. So I thought that LAFC were very condensed in the middle of the field. So if they're going to give you the space out wide, and that led to, I think Romero came on and diced somebody up on the out wide, right, in a 1v1 situation that got really dangerous.
Rosales,
Yeah, Rosales. And so he toe poked it, and Luis had to make a good save at the near post.
Yeah.
Like how can you find yourself in more of those areas? And maybe Rosales could have made a different decision once he got there, but still, really dangerous opportunity. You needed to see more of those. And so then it's up to Eric and the coaching staff to figure out how do you get those to develop more consistently, and then Yeboah and everything else falls, right? Yeboah and Tani can make more decisive, purposeful runs because they know it's coming. Again, it gets back to hope versus no, right? Yeah. If you're kind of in a situation where you're just hoping, like, can Gressel just put it in the box? That's still like a hopeful pass, as opposed to knowing that, hey, in this situation, this is what's going to happen, and I need these particular runs. That's just stuff you need to work on and have repetition with, and I'm sure that Eric and the coaching staff will address that because that's what they're going to be facing moving forward.
I think spot on assessment. I just add in that, again, compliments to LAFC in terms of that second half. We talk about problem solving, not only within the run of play, they're condensed. I thought our best set pieces was our first two set pieces. They got better and better at dealing with our set pieces, which is kind of one of our go-to ways to problem solve. That second half, we created a lot of corners, we created a lot of throw-ins. By the end of the game, they were very good at. They were the best team this year, I think, to really be prepared for the different ways we did set pieces all game. And again, I didn't think they had a lineup that I thought would have that kind of mental capabilities to be that good by 90 minutes of all of our kind of just throwing it in there. And they did a really good job. And so I think to Jimmy's point, I'm excited this time of the year. That's a great problem solved now. Like, what's the next phase of our offensive patterns? What's the next phase of playing when we're down or playing tied at home? It's kind of like you're playing down. So again, funny enough, we got to get back up on the horse on Saturday against a different type of team, by the way. So hopefully, knock on wood, we can, kind of our style matches up really well with Portland, I think, on paper. But we'll see. But yeah, I thought it was a spot on assessment, Jimmy, of the game last night.
Thanks. Maybe I'll be a coach one day.
There you go. Thanks.
Yeah, it was an interesting one for sure. I mean, you guys have mentioned the Loons struggle breaking teams down, and that's been obviously the question for this team this season. That you could play defensively, you could play on the counter, and you saw it with Steve Cherundolo last night, daring Minnesota to be on the ball, especially in that second half when they really sat deep and just gave Minnesota plenty of chances, and the Loons really struggled. It'll be interesting to see how the Loons kind of develop that next portion of their game that's been so questioned this season. Let's individually over the last two games, I think there's a couple of standouts. Anthony Marcanic once again scoring in that San Jose game. That was his fifth game in a row where he's had a goal contribution across all competitions. Marcanic continues to be a danger on those set pieces, Manny. Last night really wasn't the case, but in that San Jose match, continued to be just an absolute threat, finding spots and continuing just pop up in dangerous areas unmarked somehow, despite all the tape out there on him, that you want to mark this guy and he keeps finding ways to slip free.
Oh, and he's got the composure and the ability technically to finish with both feet, finish with his head. He's been unbelievable. And again, that is such a great quality to have, to want to find the ball in the box and then have the composure to actually crush it or score or assist, whatever it is. He's been unbelievable. Like I said, again, he didn't quite have the same impact last night, but that goal at the end of the San Jose game in first half, and you and Jimmy said it best, that really just made San Jose put their head down and say, we're going to win tonight. Getting up 3-0 at the end of the half. And it's the kind of goal that we score. And Anthony has just been unbelievable. Again, he is just, like I said, he's still working his ass off defensively for 90 minutes, and he still has the hunger to get forward in the box. It's a great quality.
Yeah, to put some pressure on Joseph Rosales at that left wing back spot, where I know coming into the season, we expected Rosales to be the key starter at that position week in and week out. And now it's Marcanic who's been kind of a revelation this season. And you saw that pressure from Rosales last night, and he came out, and when he came on, he was very lively. He was getting down that left wing, getting to the end line, making some dangerous touches, Jimmy. Having that depth at that spot, it has shown to be key for this squad, and it's really putting some pressure on Joseph Rosales, who was probably the MVP of this team last year, and now he's struggling to get minutes.
Yeah, it's a great problem to have. I'm sure Joseph isn't too happy about it, all things considered. but I think it's a tough position to fill out for a starter, let alone having two quality left backs who can be threatening going forward and hurting you in different ways. So, yeah, fair play to the club for having that type of quality. You're going to need it. You're going to need that depth. Obviously, you guys are into the Open Cup semifinals as well, so you have to balance multiple competitions. You got Leagues Cup, and there's just so much coming up. So this is going to be a good problem to have, and ultimately, I think it's going to push both players to continue to stay sharp over the next couple months. We could argue the most important months of the season. So yeah, I like Rosales a lot. I think he has something too. And if he's got a little chip on his shoulder, all the better, right? Because this is going to make him really want it and have that urgency. And he's probably not happy, but as long as he has the right attitude, then it should all work out. And then you can figure out things at the end of the season. That's where Manny comes in and helps solve problems.
Another standout I want to mention, Dane St. Clair last night coming up with a couple of huge saves, especially late in that second half where LAFC, as Minnesota were pushing forward higher and higher up the field. They had some breakaways. Denny Bwanga using his speed late on in the match after defending his butt off for 70, 80 minutes at a time, was still able to get on his horse and get down the field and have one-on-ones with Dane St. Clair. And DSC was there, Manny, a couple times late to make big saves to keep LA from making it 2-0 late in that match.
Oh yeah. It was fun. Obviously the Gold Cup, Jesse and the Canada was here and talking to him and getting him to talk about his perspective of Dane, which, he speaks very highly of him. And I just think he has a great moment right now. He's seen the game really well. I think he's saving the saves he needs to make, which there was a couple shots in the first half, which you have to make those. You have to dive, and they look very athletic. But the ones I really liked was a couple of the counterattacks in the second half where he just had to stay big, and he doesn't have to complicate it, and he does. And he makes the save a few minutes earlier before Bwanga's big breakaway. And by the time he got to Bwanga's breakaway, he's like, hey, you're going to have to beat me. I'm not going to make this easy. And I love that because as a former kind of offensive player, you start to panic a little bit when the goalie actually makes you do what you're supposed to do, which is put the ball in the corner of the back of the net. And it showed that. Bwanga, like you said, was running all game. He was running like 40, 50 yards. And Dane says, beat me, and he can't. And then Dane comes up with a big save. So I thought Dane did such a great job. He is playing at lights out for the national team. He's playing lights out for us. And he kept us in it. I mean, I still was hoping that by him keeping us in it, he came up late, by the way. Hopefully he would have been awesome. He could have scored that last set piece because he really had a great game.
Yeah, this is it sets up for a very interesting match at the weekend, Jimmy, where Minnesota travel out to Portland. This is a kind of a low-key rivalry between these two teams. Whenever they get on the field against each other, there's some tension, there's some heat. These things tend to get real physical between these two teams. And this is a Portland side that only suffered their second home loss of the season last night in a 1-0 loss to Real Salt Lake. So this is a tough place to go for Minnesota, who have been very good on the road. What kind of a challenge do Portland pose for Minnesota on Saturday night?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately you start with the environment, you start with the stadium, you start with the fans. They do have a very 12th man type vibe there. Coming off a 1-0 loss too, you'd almost wish they had won that one comfortably. You're right. So they maybe be not as urgent. They're going to have a reaction to losing at home. They can't lose 2 games at home. It's almost unacceptable anywhere, but definitely in Portland. But I've been really impressed with how the Loons have played on the road. Almost just as comfortable away as they are at home. You lose to LAFC to the beginning of the season, and then away to Houston, and that's it. I mean, you've gotten results against a good San Jose team. NYCFC, I thought, was a really impressive performance. I love that one. Going into Austin and winning 3-0 was sick. I mean, just in complete control of that game. Going into Seattle, getting a result, even a 2-2 draw against the Red Bulls. Dallas recently, it's you can just build a lot of confidence from that particular type of run and that belief that, hey, it doesn't matter where we play, we still have our identity on both sides of the ball. And I think what helps you when you're away from home is that it sets up really nice with your identity. Most home teams aren't just going to sit back, even though Dallas did way back, or when Toronto did that too.
Well, Jimmy, can Portland? Is it in their D? Have you ever seen Portland sit back? Like, I don't even know. I'm trying to think if there's ever a season.
Not at home. Never at home. It's almost unacceptable. Like it's like against their DNA.
Yeah, maybe that run in the playoffs with Gio and they kind of like, but you're right. I just can't see them sitting back on Saturday.
No, I can't see it either, but they have some good players.
Oh, yeah.
And in particular, Santiago Moreno, 25-year-old, 4 goals and 5 assists this season. He'll be kind of running off of Kelsey up top, I believe. And then you got Mora, who I think is very good underneath, and Fernandez on the other side. And they've got some good players that are going to make it difficult. But I actually think that sets up really well for Minnesota, because they're going to come at you, and that's what you want. The more teams come at you, the better chances I think that Minnesota to get a result. So I'm actually not all that worried. The only concern I have, Manny, is that it's because the Timbers just lost that there's gonna be like a different level of urgency to try to go out and put their stamp on the game as soon as possible against United.
No, I think you're right. I'm a little nervous about the 3-day rest as well and travel. Like, there is some elements here where we've got to pick ourselves up from a tough loss that we really wanted to get the win at home last night against a good team. Got to travel and be ready by Saturday for a team like you just said will have to have a reaction. So it does feel very much like if we can really control their kind of offensive output, which is outstanding, I think we have a good chance of getting a result.
And also just to jump in, because we talked about Dane St. Clair, sometimes these games come down to who the better goalkeeper is. Timbers have Crépeau, right? So it's Canada versus Canada.
Yeah.
Who can be the best Canadian goalkeeper this one? And I guarantee you, Crépeau and Dane are probably thinking the same thing. So it could come down to who can make the
other two.
if they aren't, I'll be disappointed. It really could come down to who can make that timely save and keep their team in it, because Minnesota is going to get their chances. There's no question. And the Timbers are at home are going to generate a few as well. And it really could come down to who plays better between the sticks.
Yeah, it sets up for a very interesting one, as you said, Manny. Team that doesn't really like to sit back, that has allowed quite a few goals this season. 30 on the season, 31 they've allowed this season. They've scored 31 as well. They'll be missing Anthony, who's out due to an injury. He's their leading goal scorer and goal creation guy. 6 goals, 5 assists on the season. They still got David Acosta, who is kind of their Evander replacement. 4 goals, 6 assists on the season. Santiago Moreno, 4 goals, 5 assists. He's been excellent for them. So this one sets up for a really fun one. But it's that rivalry for me, Manny, that I just can't get away from. Michael Boxall's referenced it on other podcasts that this one feels like a rivalry despite the geographical differences. But it feels like every time these two teams step on the field, there's some tension. There's some heat between these two sides.
Yeah, it's over a couple decades. It's not just MLS. There's second division rivalry that we've had them for a long time. So, we've had some great moments with them. I do think Jimmy's right in that, like, I always feel it's a special place to go play, because I think the kind of explosion of soccer in this country came from the Northwest fan bases, really, where it really got people excited. I know now it's probably more like looking to the South, or even now in the Midwest, even us, how we embrace and we have got such a great fan base. But I do think that Northwest fan base, I get nostalgic about it. You go there, they put on a really tough place to play, and then you add the turf in. What's the weather look like, Jonathan? Are we looking at a normal kind of, or sometimes they get those crazy hot days in the summer?
Well, let me see. I don't know what the weather's supposed to be like out there this weekend.
Come on, meteorologist.
Jonathan. I know, right?
Like, I haven't done my weather video for my other job.
You had one job, Jonathan. You had one job.
Oh, let's see here. Saturday. You can just hear me clicking away here. Looks like 80 degrees, so should be good to go.
So it should be good. So it'll be like mid-70s kickoff. That'll be a nice night. So it should be a good soccer game. I mean, it doesn't
look like there's a lot of rain in the forecast for Saturday, so should be a great night for soccer out in the Pacific Northwest for that one. Before we close out the show, do want to discuss some of the other games at the weekend. Manny knows, Jimmy, how much I hate the El Trafico name. Where do we stand on it? 10 or 7 years into this rivalry? I'm not a fan of it. I know it's here to stay. Not a fan of it.
I love it.
Better rivalries in the league. I hate the name.
I think I get to speak as an LA native. So Jonathan, I hate to break your heart here, but I'm with Manny. I love it. I think
that's fine.
I think it's tongue in cheek. And that sounds about right for this rivalry. And yeah, it's going to stick. And as someone that's been to a couple of these matches, there is a lot of traffic when you're trying to get to these stadiums for these games. So it's not, there's no lies detected with this particular nickname. And yeah, I thought it was fun. And I think that's where it should be. I don't know. I guess I'd want to know what your alternatives would be.
I don't have.
If you just say LA Derby, then I don't. You got to stop talking right away.
I don't think I have one right now. I just know I'm not a fan of El Tráfico. I don't know. I just don't like
this is a personal thing. First of all, John, it's over. It's El Tráfico.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I know. I
want to hear an alternative. I want other options. You give me other options, and maybe I'll agree with you. But you don't have any other options.
No, I don't have any options. I will admit.
By the way, either way, let's be honest. It's always, even now, where LAFC should kill the Galaxy. It's always lives up to its billing. It's always.
Yeah, it does.
It's always one of those ones that you've got to watch and follow, because both teams, something always crazy happens, and they really do put their heart on the line to try to win that game.
Yeah.
I mean, when the first goal between those two teams is the Zlatan 40-yarder, I mean, you're always gonna be trying to strive and to compete against that. But yeah, it always does live up to billing, no matter where those two teams are in the standings. It's gonna be a fun one for sure, Jimmy, between those two sides this weekend.
Oh, I can't wait. Yeah, I had the benefit of seeing Zlatan play for the Galaxy a few times, and wasn't there for that particular game, but I was there when El Tráfico was in the playoffs, and it was like a 6-3 game at BMO Field where LAFC play, and it was electric. I mean, I'm from LA, so to have that type of game for soccer with that type of crowd, I mean, it just makes you proud. I'm sure Manny gets to live it every day because he grew up growing the game here in Minnesota. You're just like, I can't believe this is real, but also it is real, and here we are, and it's only going to get better from here. So yeah, it's just exciting to see these type of rivalries develop. And in some ways, if I may, I think it's important to have more teams in bigger markets. I'm in the Bay Area right now, and the Earthquakes are desperately crying out to have a local rival. It would just elevate the whole game. And yes, we have the Oakland Roots and the Sac Republic who are in the USL Championship. And maybe we could argue those are the two teams that would be welcome additions to kind of building that rivalry, but it makes a big difference. It's forced the Galaxy to get better, and LAFC comes in and stole a lot of their thunder. Galaxy won it back last year, but now I've given it right back to LAFC. But there's just something about that, and I think it's elevated New York, and having someone next to, I don't know who would be your geographical.
Oh my gosh, you're opening up a can of worms. You have
is it Milwaukee? Like, who's your?
You're. Man.
Who like let's go back, because this is like,
Jimmy, you're gonna learn something about Minnesota, and this is every sport, okay? And this is the saddest thing, because I agree, it helps. The sport needs rivalries. It's amazing. It elevates everything. Minnesota sports has no rivals ever. We just don't.
The football teams do. The American football teams do.
No, Jonathan. Who?
What?
Don't the Vikings think the Bears?
Packers? Vikings.
Packers. See, I thought it was Vikings Bears.
Sorry, Jonathan. Do you understand the Packers are not our? A rivalry needs to be two teams that hate each other equally the most.
Well,
the Packers hate the Bears the most.
Packers hate the Bears. We have in any sport we have zero rivalries.
Gophers and Badgers, Gophers and Hawkeyes.
So
I can't argue that the Badgers hate someone else more than they hate the Gophers.
You just went to amateur sports, Jonathan, which I like how you now went to a different level. But in
amateur,
we don't have any rivals. It's our worst. It's a problem for Minnesota sports.
So what would you need Milwaukee to have an MLS team? Like, how does that? Would that do it?
On paper, you would say that, but then Milwaukee would just end up hating Chicago. Like there is no, people just don't quite hate us enough.
Yeah.
Even the Packers fans, like, we try so hard to get them to hate us, and they're like, no, we hate the Bears. We just so
there's something to be said for that. Yeah. You guys are every time I come in. Yeah, you're so warm and friendly and create an incredible environment at Allianz, and I always love coming here and watching you guys play.
Thank you. That kind of ended depressingly, but okay, we're good. We'll figure it out.
On that note,
we will take care of ourselves, Jimmy, on our island. We'll figure it out. But you're right. I do think the more rivals you have, what you see in the LA teams, and every transfer window now, the type of excitement those teams have. You obviously are in the Bay Area, so you're right. I mean, if the Bay Area had another team, it would just explode. So
it would. Yeah.
All right. Been a really fun conversation, wide ranging, discussed plenty of topics. Jimmy, very much appreciate you stopping by and popping on the Matchday preview. Loved having you on. Have fun up in Blaine for the USA Cup for the rest of the week. It's one of the best times of the year, and looking forward to all your coverage and all your work up there.
I appreciate that, Jonathan. Yeah, awesome. Great to see you, Manny. See you guys.
Yeah. Loons fans, thanks for sticking around. Thanks for popping into the conversation. We'll be back next week. discussing the Minnesota-Portland match and what's next for Minnesota. Thanks to the production staff, Grace Dearson, Evan Etler, and Kyle Hayward for putting this on every week. Loons fans, we'll talk to you right back here on this podcast feed with another podcast next week.